Welcome back to the Making a Pong game. This is Jonathan here. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how to add some variety or some variance into our ball when it connects with the paddle, when it makes a hit. And I just want to mention this right at the start here. There's multiple solutions to just about any game development problem or thing you want to accomplish. And sometimes sometimes a simple way will be good, but sometimes taking the easy way out can make your life harder in the long run by giving you less flexibility down the road. In this case, there's a hard way to do what we want to do, and there's a relatively easy way. The hard way, I'm not going to do the hard way in this video. I'm going to show you what the easy way is, but I will put a link in the YouTube video here. There is this other tutorial here on how to make a Pong clone, kind of similar to what I'm doing, but this shows you the harder way, and this is kind of near the bottom of this tutorial, of how to get variance into the ball. I don't want to confuse you and make things too complicated, so I'm going to show you an easier way to do this same thing. But if you do want to challenge yourself, you can go to this tutorial here and you can try implementing the harder way. But for now, I'm going to show you the easier way to add some variety into your ball. So let's go over into Unity. Okay, so first things first, we have this box collider here on the paddle, which is allowing us to bounce the ball. Now I'm just going to get rid of this altogether, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an empty game object underneath the paddle, and I'm going to call this top. And if you don't have these values here showing up as 0, 0, 0, just click this little cogwheel icon and say reset, and that will set them all to 0. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add a box collider to this smaller game object. And I'm going to resize this to only take up about 1/3 of this paddle. So I'm just going to zoom in here and go to Edit Collider, and I'm going to stretch this up. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it the same size as the paddle first, just to get an idea for what its dimensions are. And we can see here, so on the y-axis, it's about 2.46 in height. Its size, I can just set that to 0. And this size, well, that's not direct enough for me, so I'm just going to make that closer to that. Now, if you're not using my assets, these numbers might be slightly different for you. So if you're not using these assets, don't copy these values correctly or you're going to have problems. But you can copy what I'm going to be doing here. So I noticed the height is about 2.46. So I'm just going to take out a calculator because my ability to do math in my head is not very good. And I'm going to divide that by 3. And that's going to tell me that 1/3 of this paddle's height is about 0.82. So if I change this top dimension here to 0.82, I'm going to see that I did it incorrectly because that's going to stretch it. That's its offset. I want to change its size to 0.82 on the Y, and that makes it about 1/3 of the paddle's height. Now, actually, if I change the offset to 0.82, it should put it right at the very top of the paddle. So that's okay. Now I'm going to press Control D, or if you're on a Mac, Command D, to duplicate this, and I'm going to name this to middle. And I'm going to change this offset here to 0, which is going to center the collider right in the center. It's kind of hard to see those green lines, but you can see it's centered there. And now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to create a bottom, and I'm going to change this to minus 0.82. So now we have 3 game objects nested under this paddle, and it's kind of hard to see, but if you move, if you go into the game mode and you move this, and then we look back at the paddle, you can see that these colliders, they move with what they're parented to. So that's no problem. That works quite well. And this is going to give us some additional control over how the ball is going to interact when it hits these different colliders. So let's go back into our mono-developed script, and underneath move ball, I'm going to create another function, and this is called void on collision enter 2D. And it's very important you spell it exactly like this with the capital letters in the right place, because this is going to get called automatically. We're not going to have to call this. We're going to put in these brackets collision 2D and collider. Again, the word collider, this is a variable name, so you can call this whatever you want, but this has to be collision 2D spelled like that. Now, basically what's going to happen here is whenever the ball has a collision, this is going to get called, and whatever it collides with is, if it has a collider, it's going to get stored in this variable collider. So now within this function, I'm going to say if collider, and if its game object, so collider.gameObject.name is equal to, and when doing that comparison, we have to use two equal signs. And if it's top, then we're going to do some stuff, and else if collider.gameObject.name is equal to bottom, we're going to do some slightly different stuff. Add some additional spacing in here to make it a little easier to read. So if our game object, or if our ball hits the top of the paddle, we're going to give it some velocity upwards. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to say body.velocity equals, well, in this case we're going to do plus equals, which means we're going to add this velocity on top of what it already has. So we're going to say plus equals new vector2, and we can put in here force x, and in this case I'm going to put +1, because 1 always means up, and if it's hitting the top we want the ball to bounce upwards. And I can just copy this over now, and under here we are going to put -1. Now one thing I just realized, we have to put the bounciness material back on all three of these colliders. So if you highlight all three at a time, you can just drag that on here and then put this in. And if we hit play, well, we added variance to the ball already, so we need to make sure it hits. So it hit directly in the center, which is the middle, which is what it should do. It should just bounce backwards. Okay, but you see there's a problem here right away, right? You see what it did. It didn't bounce, even though it had the bounciness on it. So why is that happening? So that has to do with normalizing values, because we gave it some weird values. Its force x is 5, and it confuses Unity. So let's talk about normalizing for a second. So if we go over back into PowerPoint, .normalized is another command within Unity that allows us to maintain a direction, but it keeps the length set to a maximum of 1. It's a kind of a little bit more of a confusing concept, but it is used. It's one of those things you can use with physics. Why won't this just let me access the toolbar? Stupid Windows 10. Anyways, so what we want to do is after this new vector2 force x.1, we just want to type .normalized and get rid of that space and do the same thing here, .normalized. And now if we go back into Unity and hit play and start moving our paddle, you can see it is going to bounce. And if you notice, well, it was already on its way bouncing down. It continued to bounce down, but let's see. So we can see it slowed there. It's still going, it was still going up, but it slowed its upward momentum because we hit it on the bottom of the paddle. And there we go, it slowed again. And if it's moving down and we hit on the bottom, there we go, it pushes it further downward. So this is going to give us some additional control. And I mean, we can change some of these values here. We don't have to use .normalized if we don't want. We can just change this to force x to a 0, and we can get rid of the word normalized, and we can see what happens. So I hit play again, and if we watch, we're actually going to get similar results. So you can play around with this in different ways, and you can just figure out what is the most appealing to you in this sense. The other thing, however, if you notice, we're getting more, this ball is moving, but it's also moving off the screen. That's fine if it moves behind the paddle, because that's our scoring area, but if it's hitting the top or the bottom, we don't want it to be doing that. We just want it to bounce. So what I'm going to do here is add a couple of additional game objects. I'm going to call this top wall. Sure, that works. And we're going to reset its values and add a box collider 2D. I think we calculated the length of length and width of the playing field. I don't remember what that is off the top of my head, but I'm just going to stretch this over onto both ends. So this is just going to be our makeshift wall. And if we change it, not x offset, but y offset, There we go. We can put that right at the top of the level, and then if we duplicate that, we can change its y value to a negative, and that should put it right at the bottom. And we're going to have to put the bounciness on both of these, and also rename this to bottom wall. So let's put the bounciness on. And now let's check what happens if it hits. So there we go. It's now staying within the play space until it gets outside of there. But that's okay. We have some good control over where we're putting this ball. Of course, our computer player is absolutely terrible right now. He doesn't even try to win. What a joke. But yes, this is looking a lot more like an actual Pong game. So one last thing to do before we bring this video to a close is, of course, our challenge, and that is just for you to experiment with the ball and the paddle values and get a better feel for how changing certain values affect the physics of the game. So you can play around with those force X's, force Y's, use some random.range, do.normalize, don't do.normalize, just play around with it, try to familiarize yourself a little bit. So pause the video and give that a go. Okay, welcome back. How'd you do? Hopefully you played around with that a little bit. There'll be, of course, many more opportunities to mess around with that down the line, inside of this project and outside of this project. These things only become easier and they make more sense the more you use them and you play with them. So it is just a good idea to get a basic sense of how it all works. Anyways, that's all for this video. I will see you in the next one. Take care.